As a high performer, do you ever realize there's a slight irony to excellence, to doing a good job, to having that high skill set? And it feels like you're being rewarded when you get things done fast, efficiently, or really well with more work. And this is what I call the high performer tax. And where I'm actually seeing this a lot is in our top talent, that organizations are steadily pushing out of their teams because they're not rewarding with compensation or open time to work on their passion projects. They're rewarding them with more. Now, organizations that I work with, they're not doing this intentionally. They're not doing it maliciously. What they're doing is they're trying to get things done. So we're going to break down some of the underlying patterns that are happening that are causing this top talent turnover, because we're working on shifting patterns, not people. So the first underlying pattern that's happening in this high performer tax is the pattern of busyness, where organizational cultures are shifting to tasks, shifting to filling every bit of time instead of managing energy, managing the impact and value that they bring. And so what you're seeing is role creep, where you take over a task temporarily, maybe because that position's not filled yet, or maybe it just needs to get done really fast in a high quality way, but then it becomes yours forever. And you're also seeing things just end up on your plate because they had to be done, but they don't have a lot of impact. We're doing things differently now in an ever-changing, ever-demanding world. But there are some tasks that are hard to break, hard to stop doing. So that pattern also continues on. And then between that role creep of now doing functions that were never supposed to be in your job description and that busyness, just filling time to fill time, we've overloaded ourselves and naturally became overcapacity. Now, with top performers, sometimes they don't want to shake the boat. They don't want some of that conflict. They're going to avoid that friction. So then add in conflict avoidance. And what happens with conflict avoidance is it could be something small, like you stepped in because someone had to take notes in the meeting, or you stepped in over here because that person needed help and now it became yours forever, and you don't want to speak up about it, but then it builds. And then another task ends up on your plate and it builds. And then time goes on and this little thing that could have been addressed one-on-one into healthy conflict and dissolved has built up to be this big monster that you're carrying on your back. So let's talk about some practical shifts you can do within your organization to shift away from these patterns so that you don't lose your good people. The first thing that we're going to do is reward impact, not hours. To show you how this is affecting your performance, I want to introduce you to Parkinson's Law. Parkinson's Law states that work will fill available time. As you can see, you can still achieve a good amount of quality of work, high production, in a smaller amount of time because you're focused on value. Whereas if you have all week to complete the task, the function, you actually will have lower performance and quality because you're filling the time. A great example of this is, say you're going to go on PTO soon. You will cram and focus on the impactful, value-added work before you go on that PTO. In 2 days, you can complete the work of 4 days, 2 weeks, because you are so laser focused. You're not staying in meetings just to linger, just to chit chat. You're not allowing meetings spill over. You're not breaking those boundaries with distractions and pings and pongs in your team's chat. You're laser focused. And so you have high performance, you are laser focused, and then you go on PTO. But then when we come back from PTO, we shift back into old patterns where we fill the time because we have the time. And what Parkinson's Law really comes out is in 4-day work week research, where they shrunk down the work week because Fridays are the least productive day in the office. They shrunk it down to Monday through Thursday, and they actually saw production go up by 40%. Because when you only have 4 days, you focus on value, not the waste. So 4-day work weeks ends up being not just an employee benefit, but a productivity and operational excellence mechanism. So based on Parkinson's Law and this model, let's see how we're rewarding our high performers. Your high performer gets the goal met before schedule, before the deadline, and we automatically fill that space. What did we just groom their behavior to do next time? Fill the space Fill it with busyness. Fill it with non-impact, low-value items. Instead of them being rewarded for the efficiencies and having time back, maybe to think, maybe to reset, maybe to work on their passion project, we rewarded them with waste. Because if they would have took the full time, that those other tasks that we just added wouldn't have never been added. So when a team member hits their goal early, we're not going to just automatically fill that space because technically that task was never priority. We're going to allow them to regain that time so that that invisible work doesn't start to creep in and demotivate them where their skill set actually mattered most. Now, the other thing that you can do is audit for role creep. And I recommend to do this every couple years for each role. And that's regularly reviewing these job descriptions against the actual tasks being completed. This is the invisible workload that has shifted from people being over responsible, making other people under responsible. It's addressing where those skill gaps have now become dysfunction across team members. High performers often become the buffer to clean up messes, to cover up poor performance, which ultimately is not allowing you to address the actual performance issues going on in your team. So by having your department or your team members do a time audit of what are they actually working on, what are they spending their time on, so you can clean up these job descriptions, you might even get approval to hire a couple more people to your team because you are recognizing that everyone is over capacity. It's going to help you create development plans to close the gap of some of those skill sets that people need to improve upon. And in doing so, you're addressing that Parkinson's law of expanding work, and you're also rewarding your top performers with lifting the load that they should have never carried. The next thing you want to do is address the messy middle, as I like to call it, helping middle managers identify when they're using high performers as the buffer, as the cleanup, instead of dealing with the actual poor performance issue. Now, poor performance issues can come from the process flow between departments, between handoffs. Poor performance can be people. They don't have the skill set, they don't have the accountability, they don't have the clarification to do the job. Poor performance can come from the operation where one department's not putting information in the system, so another department can't do their job or execute the work that needs to be done. When you address those messy middle moments, usually going on with those middle managers, the people in between the demands from the top and the employees actually executing the work, when you can address that, you move into operational excellence because you're addressing the broken blinkers that are holding the team back and draining the energy. So now let's talk about, as a high performer, how you're going to manage this high performance task. You're going to need to manage your own energy. That means you're going to have to identify what is an emergency, what is urgent, and what is not. What can wait? What can be scheduled out? What can be delegated? And guess what? After hours doesn't necessarily mean emergency. I found as a high performer, if I signed on for work at the end of the night, I felt a sense of progress. But then I woke up and I had more work. It's interesting how that plate has a natural way of refilling it. So I started really identifying what is priority, what is emergency, what is impact and value. And I focused on that. And you will see the waste slowly move away. You will see people who leaned on you because of their poor performance or lack of accountability go away because you no longer allow it. Establishing some of those boundaries and steps of what is an emergency and urgent and your actual core hours of working is going to help you reset so you can show up with energy the next day. Which brings me to the second thing that you can do as a high performer, the power of no. Just because you can, just because you're skilled, doesn't mean that you have to. Does someone else actually own that? Do they need a little training so they can own it in a way that satisfies your expectations? Do you need to have a quick conversation to address conflict before it blows up? Even just asking the question, backing up the group, asking things like, does this bring value to our project? Is this urgent this week? We set a priority of this. Has that changed? Giving a pause point in that no to really help the group reset on what is urgent and important. Who owns what? And naturally, that keeps each member accountable without letting that conflict explode. And the last thing you can do is understand your DISC style. There are things that your work style needs to be met before it can take the next step. And when you don't understand your own behavior, your own needs, that stress will begin to compound. Do you need things to move? You need results. You need things to be hit. You don't want all this fluff and extra tasks. Are people holding you back? Do you need that socialization and connection to make sure that everyone knows what they're doing and feels like they can perform? Do you need less change, less conflict, real one-on-one conversations versus these big group initiatives? Do you need data details, information to take your next step? When you understand your work style, you can begin to understand other people's behaviors as well and meet them halfway. Now, where this high performance tax came from is I was seeing a trend. In workforce energy management programs, we do a couple steps as we build the program. We assess the energy. Where is the energy drain coming from? Why is work so overwhelming and difficult these days? We customize to your organization and where those specific energy drains are. Then we identify the patterns behind it. What are those root causes? What are the things that we need to just do differently these days? And then we begin to shift those patterns. Again, we're shifting patterns, not people. And then the last step is build capacity for sustainable energy. We're not just doing things to do things these days. We're going to do them very intentionally to meet the results and outcomes that we're looking for. On an individual level, we're working on understanding our own behaviors, how we show up, what type of energy do we bring. And on a team layer, we're working on alignment, matching up different team members, different departments to get on the same path on this trail. And on the leadership level, we're working on development. How are we leading the change? Are we losing people along the way? Or are we having them naturally follow? Are we addressing the conflict in a healthy way, or are we avoiding it? By shifting the patterns in our environment, we're changing the operational and environment system around us, what provides that natural team energy that produces. The old operating system is we change people. The new operating system is we're shifting the patterns. The old way that we used to do it is managing time, managing tasks. Now we're managing workforce energy. The old way is Parkinson's law, filling the time with busyness. The new way is removing the waste, which naturally will produce more impact and results. And we're also moving away from conflict avoidance into healthy conflict. If we haven't connected on your workforce energy management program, let's talk about how we can navigate your messy middle through bite-sized learning and practical development to boundary setting for our people pleasers and managing our energy that's a little more sustainable so that high performers no longer get taxed.